If your child is not dreaming, eating everything about acting, your child should not be acting.
What does it take to turn a kid with great big dreams into a confident working actor? And how does Marnie Cooper do it time and time again? Well, you're going to find out because today I am talking to the one, the only acting coach extraordinaire to young kids, Miss Marnie Cooper. If this is your first time here, my name is Lydia Nicole, and this is Acting Smarter Now. What is the difference between New York actors and Los Angeles based actors?
I don't want to start off being rude in any way. So I will say that I began my career in New York as an actress and as an acting teacher. First of all, not everybody in New York is an actor, which is really refreshing. When I moved out here, let's just say my mother went into the hospital and I was very concerned about her. And I gave the doctor my business card that said Marnie Cooper School of Acting. He looked and I said to him, please, 24 hours, call me. And he took a double take and he went, you're an acting teacher? And I said, yes, because all I care about is my mom right now. And he goes, I always wanted to be an actor. And I was like, you're a doctor. He said, no, that was my dream. I said, okay, I'll make you a deal. You get my mom out of this hospital alive, I will help you. I'll give you an acting class. Well, my mom walked out, so I had to keep my word. No offense, but the man thought because he is a doctor, he could play a doctor. And God help me, I hope he doesn't hear this, but he was so wooden. And all I wanted him to do was be who he is. I gave him a role of a doctor role. Just speak your truth. Nothing was working. All my bag of tricks. I was like, he's not an actor. He's a doctor. What am I doing? Anyway, I'm trying to get him to relax and be more creative and just be. And all of a sudden he gets an emergency and he's like, excuse me, 1 second. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's it? Okay. No. I was like, that's who I want you to be. Just be. And then we went back to the script. It still wasn't going to work because the bottom line, not everybody should be an actor. LA has a very warped view. I mean, people go up to kids in the mall. You don't ever hear of somebody going up to a kid in the mall saying, do you want to play in the NBA? You know, or do you want to be the head person at NASA? I mean, it's like, it's just not, it's not cool because every parent in LA, when they hear, I can make your child a star, they don't think about the struggle. They see money signs and fame and fortune, and they think these are all positive things, and they're not.
Let's talk about why it's inappropriate for adults to approach kids in malls, in supermarkets, in the park, and say, do you want to be on a TV show?
Well, first of all, people don't do that in New York, okay? Because in New York, they're prepared to study the theater. And studying and being on stage is a big commitment. And I was always working on my craft. That's the missing thing. There's craft to acting. And because when people turn on the TV or go to the movies or what have you, people make it look effortless. Therefore, they conclude, I can do it. You can do it. Grandma, grandpa, let's have the whole family do it. Right? But it is beyond frustrating for me because not everybody sees it as a craft. In New York, if I could tell you the kids that were in my acting class, Leelee Sobieski was in my class. She played Joan of Arc on Joan of Arc. She was making, I mean, not that it matters, but she was making $1 million a picture.
Wow.
Yeah, as a kid, as a young adult. But there were very famous kids. There was Emmy, Rossum, Leelee, Sobieski, and Michelle Trachtenberg, to just name a few. And these kids came religiously. It was not a drop-in class for when you feel like working on your craft. Each week we worked on the craft, and they continued until now. Everybody knows their names, sadly, very sadly. About Michelle Trachtenberg, my heart hurts from that one. But these were kids who were in it for life. That's the difference between New York and LA. New York, they're like, let's put in the time. In LA, I'll tell you, I once had somebody come to class after the first class. The mother asked me, so how many classes till she can be ready for a series? And I'm from New York, so I wasn't going to be nice. And I said, well, look, I said, I started studying the craft when I was 6 years old in Manhattan. And I started working professionally at the age of 16. And I still was in acting classes up until my mid 30s. So you can do the math, and that's how long. And she left skid marks, as they say, right? Whew. People think that it's not work. That's the problem. It's a lot of work to be effortless. And I am extremely into research, right? I mean, I had a kid who was auditioning for a movie about the Amish country. And we started off, what do you know about the Amish country? I don't know anything. Let's begin. Well, by the time she went in for the audition, she knew she was living, eating, breathing the Amish country as best she could, right? She was dressed appropriately. She understood the material because the material was very different. In that it was about a massacre that happened in the Amish country. And literally, the night of the massacre, the Amish went to the woman's house of the husband who killed these children, and the men there, because that's what they did, said, we forgive your husband. Well, as a parent, I was like, oh, then the Amish must be like out of their freaking minds. And then I understood it. Their philosophy is, if their heart is so hardened, then there's less room to love who's on this earth. So they did it not because they were saying, oh, love, peace, we don't care that you killed our children. They did it because they wanted to love the people who were still here with their whole heart and not missing a chunk of their heart because of the massacre. It took a while to understand that on a core level, but the daughter in it had to say things that were at first preposterous. Well, fast forward, she went in, she booked it right away, and the feedback was, it was a no-brainer. This girl was the character. How do you get to be the character? You do the work. That's how you get to be the character. You don't just, wing it and hope for the best.
Well, let's talk about the work, because you are absolutely right. People in Los Angeles have a different take on what acting is as opposed to New York. In New York, it's a career. It's something that it's a marathon, right? You're training, you're going to be in it a long time. Here, it's about booking a job, being on TV or being in a film, and not worrying about what skills you need.
Right.
That is not the thing that a lot of teachers or a lot of places, even studios, they don't focus on, especially young kids. It's just we need a kid who is about between 5 and 7 who looks like they could be Al Pacino's grandson.
Right,
That's all. We just
right.
want them to look like it. So there's no thought into, can this kid deliver the lines? Can he be convincing? All of that. With that being said, let's start with your, when a parent brings their child into your studio, what is the first litmus test that you have them go through?
Okay. The first thing I do is I insist the mother is not in the room, or the parent not in the room. The reason being, I need to ask the most important question: why do you like acting? And their answer will tell me in a second whether they're doing it because their parent wants them to do it or doing it because they love it. I can see it in their eyes. There's passion, or there's, well, I like it because I like to act. What do you mean? I'll tell you. One kid, I swear it broke my heart. Little kid. I said, so tell me, why do you like acting? He said, I like the paparazzi. Now, the word was bigger than this kid. I'm telling you, he's a little kid. And that's when I've stopped many times and have said, do you want to do this? And I'll tell the kid, not really. Well, you don't have to. Listen, I've had plenty of parents get angry with me. I don't care. I don't mean like I don't care, but I mean, if your child is not dreaming, eating everything about acting, your child should not be acting. And there should be a contract between you and your parents. The moment your kid says, I'm not having fun anymore, you stop.
Being an actor myself, early on I was on many sets where, and auditions where I would see the parent threaten the kid, if you don't do that, and it was horrible. Or they would be on set, and to see a little kid have to act like an adult when they should be having their childhood is horrifying. My daughter, when she was little, she wanted to act, and I said, you can do it when you turn 18. You're not doing it before then, because I knew a lot of child actors in Los Angeles, and it it messed them up. If you don't have somebody who cares about the child,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen it the last year. We've had exposés done on kids that were on Nickelodeon,
Oh,
and
I worked
the
with them. Of
horror.
course. Yes. I mean, I worked with Jeanette Purdy. Uh, I had no idea. I wish to God I would have known something, because I just remember her coming. I remember her mother waiting for her in her waiting room, and how lovely everybody was. And little did you know that she was being abused, and that she didn't want to be an actress. It is the hardest profession. And guess what? You will, even if you're Al Pacino, starting out, you will be rejected more than getting the role. Of course, you will feel rejection so deeply, because it's not like you're putting a puppet up and they didn't like my puppet. They're putting you up. Oh, they didn't like me. That can do a number on you. They're not saying they didn't like you. And that's why I explain to kids and parents how much goes into casting, so that they know at the end of the day, if you do your best work, that's all you do. You go in to strut your stuff, then let it go as best you can.
Kids don't understand that they didn't do anything wrong. So as you're teaching them, because you're jazzed, you're ready for the job. I mean, I would see little kids come out of auditions sobbing, um, because their instincts knew they weren't going to get that job. So when they
Mm-hmm.
came out, they were in tears. How do you, as you are teaching the young students, how are you teaching them to start taking it in stride, and how, to love the profession, but
Mm-hmm.
not feel indebted in a, like, if you go on an audition and you don't book it, your life is over.
Right. Here's the thing. You have to fall in love with the art of acting. It's an art form. So if you love the art, that's fantastic. It doesn't necessarily mean that A, you have to be in the profession, or B, that you're going to work as a professional. For myself, I could tell you 3 roles that it was between me and the other person who is now famous. Okay. I would have been blah, blah, blah. But that was not meant for me. I was meant to teach. And I'll tell you, I tell these kids how beautiful they are, that they don't need to do something to be perfect exactly the way they are. I hate the word perfect. I really hate the word perfect. But I joke with them like a little kid, and I'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have to pay the rent?" And they're like, "No." "Do you have to pay for the lights?" "No." I said, "So then let's just have fun. Who cares? This is not important. Let your parents worry about the other stuff." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And you can see if there's no light on, I will shut it down. And I have done it time and time again. As I said, there are parents who do not like me because I have dared to say, I remember one kid, we were talking about acting, and there was, whoa, was glassy eyed. And then I said, "What do you love?" And he started talking about science and rocks and fossils. And he lit up. And the parents came in, and I said, "Do you realize how magnificent this is? Your kid wants to be a scientist, wants to." And they were like, "But he wanted to be an actor." No, I wasn't mean, but I was firm. Your kid does not want to be an actor at this time. It could change. If it changes, I've been doing it 36 years, God willing. I'll be doing it another, I don't know what, 30 years. But the spark has to be there. Now, every once in a while, I will see someone with that spark. And it's very exciting. Listen, when Miley Cyrus walked in, she didn't even have to talk. I was like, whoa, and I knew there was just something very special about her. Same thing with Mila Kunis. She walked in, and I was like, okay, there's an energy and I don't even know, sixth sense that I have, that I can feel it. Now, can other people work? Sure. I told one person that his daughter should absolutely not pursue acting. And then fast forward, I saw her on a Disney show. All the power to them. I was not happy with the story that the kid told me, which I won't go into, but it broke my heart. And so I said my piece. More than that, I can't follow them around. I can't make them stop. I can only recommend. And I can also say that the ones who it's like they're an old soul, they've done this for years in other lives. It's wild. You just feel this, like you've been around, and even though you're a child, there's a wisdom inside of you that is really special. a wisdom that's far beyond your years.
So you work with kids from what age to what age?
Well, I've worked as young as 5. And that's a really 5, 6, 7. Those are special ages in that you better not mess them up. I mean, less is more, if you will. Here's the deal. Somebody once called me, my kid's 5 and I said, all right, I'll work with them for 2 sessions. Little kids have it. One kid turns to the next and says, you want to play house? Okay. I want to be the guinea pig. Perfect. It's phenomenal. It's what they do innately. And then an acting teacher can come in and really mess with it. My thing is to get out of their way, really for all ages, to bring out what's already there. Here's a pet peeve of mine. People will have an audition. I work with a lot of kids, teens, young adults, influencers now. But this used to happen all the time when there were in-person auditions. I would coach 5, 7, 15 kids on the same material. And parents would freak out. Wait, that girl is similar to my kid. What is she auditioning for? And I said, I'm sorry, I can't reveal that. I've seen her before. She's my kid's competition. Okay, you know what? Here's the thing. If I make all 10 kids, let's say, seem that they're all been coached by me, I'm an awful coach. Okay, so I can't put my signature on it. And that's the truth. My signature is you can't tell they've been coached. That's my signature. So I have been told, and sometimes it's broken my heart, because there's some kids that I coach and they go on, yeah, no, I don't. The manager once, for one particular kid, said, yeah, this client she's never gotten coached. And I was like, what am I, chopped liver? Of course, I coach her. But there's something to be said for, especially nowadays, they want to discover the real person. It's a different business than it started out being 36 years ago. Night and day.
If there's a parent watching this, what do they need to know about wanting to come to your school and bring their child who is interested in acting?
Right. What I often do is a full evaluation. And that really shows us where the person is at. Okay. I start off just with an interview. I have worked with some kids that, my gosh, they're brilliant actors, but they get asked a question and they shut down. So what are you doing this summer? I don't know. Well, when they say, I don't know, the casting director is writing down, not this kid, right? Because that's part of the training that we do. I tell the kids, now it's funny because all of the terms that I use are now different. So when I say, think of it as a light switch, they're like, what, a dimmer? I'm like, no, a light switch. Let me show you what a light switch is. And it's like, you have to be able to just flip the switch and turn it on, right? Which doesn't mean be false. Some kids will say to me, somebody said to me the other day, my other acting teacher said I have to be very, very energetic and all of that. And I said, no, this is not who the kid's essence is. The kid's like a nerdy, I don't even like to say nerdy, but like a very buttoned up kid, But his essence is not, hey, which, by the way, nobody likes. FYI. People think that showbiz kids are exciting. Nobody likes to be performed at. You don't want to come in unless, listen, I'm not talking Disney, Nickelodeon. Disney, Nickelodeon commercials, I'm not talking about that. I was still friends, with a casting director for commercial that would test the kids. And if he would say, hi, how are you? How's your day? And if the kid said, fine, he'd go, okay, go home. I don't want to audition you. So that's a whole other ball of wax. Okay. So why this kid who is, as you said, okay, more of an intellectual and would be told you need to pump up that energy and act the way Susie acts or Bobby acts. That's wrong. We all have our own essence. And my job as your coach, as your teacher, is to find your essence, right? Your truth.
So how do you start doing that? Because I mean, that's hard for adults to figure it out. I talk to actors all the time about what their essence is, how to
Mm-hmm.
brand themselves, how to sell themselves once they have craft. I just want to make that really clear. I am of the same school you are. I believe that actors should train, they should understand, they should know script analysis, they should know how to do a character, how to research the character. I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm.
But in Hollywood, it is important that they know their brand, their
Mm-hmm.
essence. They can't
Mm-hmm.
get away with, um, like in New York, you can be a working actor and just go into from role to role to role, and it's not a big deal. But out here, they're not they're not doing theater, they're doing camera work, so they're right on your face, so they need to know what it is that you exude, because they're not looking for a character, they're looking for you. So you
Mm-hmm.
as a teacher working with a young student, how do you get them to start thinking about their special sauce, their essence?
Many different ways. One is really just in the interview with kids. I get a sense of who they are in what they talk about and how they talk about things. I'll ask them different questions and they reveal right away who they are. Their essence comes across when they're just talking to you. You know, you don't have to really do much to see how they tick when you ask them about animals, you know, or their brother or sister. You'll have the polite kid whose parents coached them and they'll say, I love my sister. She's my favorite person. And then you'll get the real deal who go, oh, why can't I be an only child? You know, or they'll say, listen, I love them, but oh, they're so mean, or we're always fighting because my sister thinks that blah, 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 blah. And it just is easy with kids. They tell you who they are right away. They don't know yet how to hide stuff. And I love it, right? One kid said, oh my God, this is embarrassing, but I have kids say things to me all the time. That's a picture of you? I go, yeah, of course it's a picture of me. You were so young. Thank you. Right? I mean, they just say it the way they see it. And so getting kids' essence to me is piece of cake. Then getting it in the script is another thing. And that's where we really have to work. That's where I do have little kids do backstories. I do. Here's the main thing with little kids. Their main weakness is brain activity. That's their biggest weakness. And when I worked on The Grinch as the acting coach, Ron Howard took me aside and he goes, look, little kids don't feel obligated to give you social or to give you cues. Oh yeah, I'm listening. Oh, interesting. Right? They talk and then it could be going on, but they could just be flat. And you can't have the kid be flat when they're listening. So I work with the inner monologue, probably more than anything. Listening and inner monologue. Oh my gosh. And I will have a 5-year-old know the word inner monologue because there's no kid acting and adult acting. It's acting. And I can't stand it when we have children acting, adult acting. What is that? Teach them. It's like when you teach a little kid a language and they get it like that. Same thing in acting. You teach them everything, and it's the cutest thing. I'm telling you, when they say, you didn't raise the stakes enough. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to faint. It's so, but they understand it. That's why I'm going to faint. That's what's so incredible. Just give them the real stuff. So inner monologue is all about, as I tell them, chewing the food, chewing the information, right? I said, you ever eat an apple? Sure. Do you eat it like take a bite and just swallow it? No, that would hurt. Right. You got to chew it. You got to chew it. That's what you do when you're listening to somebody. You're oh, okay. Or whatever it is. The big mistake that people make with inner monologue is they're not just thinking. I said, so what are you thinking? Well, I'm thinking that years ago when whoa, give me a word. A word? Yeah. What are you thinking? I don't know. Yes, that's the word. That's it. Right? So mom's saying something to you and you're like, I don't know, this is whatever. But it's simple. It's all about simplicity and specificity. That's what acting's about. We complicate things so much. Me too. Me too. My job is to help you keep things simple and to be specific. When I say specific, I work a lot with pictures, right? So there's a Law and Order scene that I have kids do where they have to explain what the guy looked like. And I can see there's no picture in their mind. And that's when I stop them. And they think I'm a magician. How did you know? This is what I do. I see that you're not thinking of somebody, or you are. You're specific or you're general. I always say to the kids, it's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to be general. So it's okay that you thought that so-and-so was the bully. It's okay that you thought he was the one or she was the one, but it's not okay that you didn't have a picture in your mind. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. When you make strong choices in an audition, even if they are wrong, the casting director, the producer, whoever's looking at that tape sees that you can make choices. So they're going to then call you back either on Zoom or to do another audition. And this time they're going to give you some direction, some clean direction to, because they feel like, well, at least they're making choices. And I think that is that's the key, right, in acting,
Mm-hmm.
is to be simple yet specific is wonderful. There's something else that I heard you say when I was talking to you this morning, and you said you tell your students to bring the drama, not the trauma. I think that is so brilliant. Can you break that down for me, what that means?
Here's the thing. Another misconception about acting is this kid's had a really traumatic life. Let's use it and really, get the tears. First of all, tears are a result. I have so many kids, I swear, talking about trauma and drama. I have kids come in and they'll be staring at a light. And I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to make myself cry. I stare at the light. This acting teacher told me to stare into a light. I'm like, please don't stare into my light. Okay. It's just, I can't tell you how much I have seen. And I say, that is a result. We cry. First of all, whenever we cry, we do not want to cry. And I always give them examples from my life. I remember my dad was reaming me about something as a teenager. And I could see myself. I was standing in his office and he was really letting me have it. And I remember thinking, do not let him cry. Do not let him see you cry. Do not let him see you cry. Don't give him that satisfaction. And it was, a waterworks started coming because I didn't want him to see me cry. So you never go in trying to cry. Kids do it all the time. They have their tricks. Their mom taught them, slice an onion. No.
So do adults. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you go on YouTube and you type in how to cry, they're ridiculous pointers that they will give. It's like, that's not acting, people. It's
Right.
not acting. Something that I heard as I was listening to your book, which is fantastic. Let me just give a little plug for this book, because I think this is not only a great book for kids and parents, but it's also a great book for somebody who's just getting into acting, because you break it down so simply and so cleanly. I love it. And it just hits, it just goes right to what it is. It's called Teaching Kids to Act for Film and Television, and it is by Marnie Cooper. And it's on Kindle. So you just put it on your phone. You could read it, you could hear it. It's fabulous. I think some great information is in this book. I mean, I just think you did an outstanding job, and you took in within the book, in the ebook, you talk about finding triggers that get you to the crying.
Right.
So that it's authentic, so that it is genuine. It comes from a real place. You may not know what it feels like to have your mom dying, but you know what it feels like to have your dog dying.
Right.
Emotion is emotion.
Right. And the truth is, that's trauma. If I say, okay, in this scene, your father's dying. So I want you to imagine your father laying down in a hospital bed no, I will not do that. Why? Because your kid's going to wake up with nightmares tonight. And he's going to start, or she's going to start, or they are going to start asking, when are you going to, does everybody die? Are you going to die soon? What's going, how do I know I'm not doing that to a kid. Now, I will, because it's my job, get them to get in touch with deep sadness. And we can do that by talking about a dog that they had, or an animal, a cat that passed away. Or we do more of an as if, where I do a whole scenario where your dog runs out and you threw the ball to make it even worse, and it went into the street. I have all different scenarios, and it just breaks my heart. And you just, I can see the kid, and it's never in my eyes, by the way. They always have to look down. And that's that you're not going to be able to picture anything in someone's eyes. We don't do that. We can't. It's not possible. So I'll say, do me a favor, describe your bedroom to me. And they'll say, okay, well, there, right there where you just looked, that's your place. That's where you see your visual, right? So they start seeing it, and kids are just magnificent. I start 2 seconds in. Some of them are just like, because they're willing. And us adults are questioning why are you doing this? You know what I mean? And we're so in our head, whereas kids don't know yet how to be in their head, which I love. That's why I've always loved working with kids, because they're a dream come true. They're there. So anyway, I'll give you 2 examples of trauma. One was interesting. I was working with a working actor, and he needed to be emotional in a scene. Okay, so we were talking about his dog that actually had died. And So he starts getting really upset. I mean, really upset. And I can barely understand the words that he's saying. And everyone in class was like, whoa. I said, I got to break it to you guys. That wasn't it. How could you say that? He was crying hysterically. First of all, I didn't understand any of his lines. And that just is one of my biggest pet peeves, because as I get older, I'm saying, what? A lot more. What'd they say? Right? I put on the subtitles now. I'm like, I need the subtitles. Oh, it's awful. But it's a pet peeve. If you can't understand what someone's saying, it breaks the moment for me because they're mumbling. Okay. So I can't understand what he's saying. On top of it, you could tell that it was all about the crying. It wasn't about the pain. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't storytelling. Listen, if it does not say that your character is crying and the line afterwards is, please stop crying, you don't need tears ever, ever. It's so much more eloquent and moving to just have something caught in your throat. You just are filled with feelings, if you will. But the tears does not mean I did it. Tears doesn't mean anything except for there's water dripping out of your eyes. If it's not full, if it's not coming from a place of truth, if you're not using something, listen, there are some people, I love it, that can absolutely just use the given circumstances in the scene and they're there and it just works. In other words, if the writer says your parents are getting divorced, there are some kids who they're devastated in the moment. And they don't have to do the work to get there. They just feel it. Well, that's the best, right? Acting and technique is when things don't work. When it's working, shut up, watch, and observe, right? So the most important thing is crying is a result, and we don't want to go for results. It's so much more interesting to not know. Don't know anything. All you know is, in fact, you don't even know what the next line is, because what I have the kids do is think it's going to go in the direction that you want. You're coming in, Mom, can I get a new laptop? And you think the mom's going, of course, sweetheart, let's go to Apple Store. In fact, I made an appointment earlier today. I read your mind, right? So think how it should, because that's what we do in real life. We don't come come downstairs or wherever and have breakfast, and you don't go, oh, I'm coming downstairs to have a fight with Mom. Never. Right? You come downstairs and something happens and then something hits you and we're off and running, but you don't expect it. And that's when it's interesting. I mean, there's so many different aspects to talk about, but so often you see the person, whether it be kid, adult, whoever, listening for their cue. No. What I do when I see that is I change the line. And then they go, you didn't say your line. And I go, you weren't listening properly. In other words, they hear, oh my God, you changed the line. But I did it because I can see that you're preparing to say your line. The camera sees it and it says liar. And I don't want the kid to be a liar. It really is about going out there without a net. And that's awfully scary. So most of us have a net in our back pocket just in case. But to go out really without a net is an incredible experience.
It's being present. It's being present. You're teaching the kids how to be present.
Right.
And whatever curveball they're thrown, they can go right with it.
One of the best examples, which is really embarrassing to say, is I was teaching class back when everybody was in person. And I've always had animals, love animals, love animals. Okay. And my animals have never been particularly trained very well. Okay. So for whatever reason, when Theodore gets upset, he'll let you know. And he was upset with me. So I'm teaching this class and I'm thinking, ooh, I'm really on, I'm really getting through to these kids. And all of a sudden I see kids, everybody's leaving in their mind. And I'm like, can someone tell me what just happened? And one of the kids pointed at Theodore and he just pooped right on the floor. And I went, oh my God, this is a perfect learning example. Okay, what did you think when you saw that? And they were like, ew. And I was like, there, that's an inner monologue. Someone else was like, that's disgusting. Yes, that's an inner monologue. I want to puke. Yes. Nobody said, oh, your dog defecated in the living room and that's inappropriate. And I am, nobody, you just went, ew, gross, right? That's inner monologue. It's just, and nobody knew to tell, and you were stuck because I'm your teacher. So you didn't want to be rude, but you want to vomit at the same time. I said, guys, I'm so glad my dog pooped on the floor today. It was disgusting. I apologize. It doesn't normally happen. But there have been so many wonderful mistakes that are beautiful lessons. And I do this all the time to my students, ones that know me, that I would never really hurt them. I'll say, Sally, stop. And they go, what did I do? You know what you did. What did, Marnie, what? And I go, I'm sorry, I was just using you. Okay, that was reacting because I didn't give them a heads up. And that's why, I said, did you feel like you were sweating? Yes. I didn't do anything. Of course you didn't, but I used you as an example and I thank you. But that's how kids learn, is by really doing that to a kid. It's cruel, but not cruel. It's important because then they feel really being in the moment as opposed to, I need to make a face. That's another thing. Well, should I do this face? I go, well, no. Acting is not about facial expressions. If the thought is there, your face will follow it. And so, everybody knows. So if somebody asks the question about the face, everybody kind of goes, ooh, here she comes, because it's not about the face, really. And what's interesting is when things don't go the way we want them to. That's exciting. I tell them stories. My grandmother was on her deathbed and we would go visit her every single day. And we were told she's going to die tomorrow. Well, this woman hung on. She was like, I got my whole family here. I'm not going anywhere. Right? It got to a point where we were all like, I got to start my life again. I can't. And we hadn't slept in so long that we got the giggles. I mean, every age got the giggles. My grandmother's on her deathbed and we have the giggles. That somebody would, no, that's not respectful. That's interesting. And that's truthful. Because just because she's on her deathbed doesn't mean that we're all acting a certain way.
What does it mean to own the part? And how do you start teaching young kids to own the part?
I have everybody in my classes do the same scene because everybody thinks that it's the same scene and we're all going to be the same and this is really silly. But I get to bring home to them that everybody, if you are using yourself properly, has had different life experiences. Therefore, this person who you have created is coming from you. So it can't be the same as the other 10, 15 people in the room. It If it is, again, bad teacher, go home. It's got to be using your life experiences. What, for example, let me give you an example. Today I taught a class and the kids were, first of all, let me say my biggest pet peeve, which I always say for different things, so it's really not my biggest pet peeve. It's just another one of them, is not looking up words. Oh my God. I cannot tell you how many kids come in not knowing what words mean. And I see it again. Oh, you're a good acting teacher. No, you just didn't do your homework. And when you don't do your homework, it shows. So, first time they're with me, they don't get a lecture. But after that, they get a lecture. Because you can't act what you don't understand, right? You can't. There's no way. So that's the first thing that I have them do. Look up every word. And I'm always looking up words because sometimes there's something in the definition that gets me going. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. I know what it means, but that's interesting. Okay, so then we need to really find out where this lives in you, right? Like today's class, the little kid is afraid because the father is living out of his car with his kid, and the kid wants to keep living with dad, right? And I always say to them, you can't play a negative. What I mean by that is I'll say, what do you want in the scene? I don't want my dad to be found out. And I go, how do you play that? And they're like, well, I don't know. Do you want this pencil? Play like you want my pencil. And they got it. Easy. So play it again. This time you don't want my pencil. And they go, their brain kind of goes, what? And that's the point. Your brain doesn't know how to not get something. It only knows how to get something. So what do you want in the scene? I want to continue living with my dad. I want my dad to be left alone. You can't play. I don't want my dad to go to jail. I don't want child service protective services to come get me. Okay. So I want to be left alone. I want to be able to live with my dad in the car. Not really. I mean, you don't want to live in the car, but you'd rather live in the car with dad than be living with a stranger. So everybody was really coming at it from a different place. They all the kids know that every scene, even as a kid, must be life and death. If you do not get what you want, you will die. And they all know that I don't really mean die. I mean, it has to be, the stakes are high. And again, kids will say, the stakes weren't high enough. I love it. And they get it. They really do get it. It's just, it goes back to languages. You know, you have a kid speaking 4 different languages at 8 years old. How'd you do it? Well, you didn't say they couldn't. There's so many things that you need to know as a young artist. One is the relationship. Okay. We talk to different people differently. And I love it when I have my teen class because I'll say to them, you know, when you've got your friends over and you're all hanging out and you're so cool and you're just, talking to your friends, and then mom walks in and you're like a deer in headlights because you're like, how do I act now? Because you have a whole different go-to when you're talking to your mom, which is completely different as a teenager with your best friends. And oh my God, and then mom walks in, honey. Yeah. It's great because they get that. They all get what it's like to not know what gear am I living in. So that's part of the training is the relationships. And we do relationship games where you have to be talking to a best friend and then grandpa calls. So you're like, oh, and did you think whatever? And then, hi, grandpa. How are you? Do you know what I mean? It's so wonderful that their whole body shifts. Everything has changed. And then we're talking about the where. Where are you in the scene? I have very prestigious or wealthy, whatever you want to say. People say, I want you to come to me. I want you to teach my daughter in my home. Rarely do I do that because in their home, they're too comfortable. I want them to be uncomfortable and learn how to be comfortable, uncomfortable. That's interesting. As well as what I always say to them, we don't want to see perfect. Perfect isn't interesting. I always say we want the warts. That's what we want. And they get it when I have them do an exercise where they tell a personal experience. Again, I say to them, this should not be a family secret, as they understand. Sometimes families have things that they say don't. It's sad. I had a lot of them in my family, not great, but it is what it is. You share something that means something to you that was really hurtful, but you will never feel like, oh God, I really wish I didn't share that. I really wish people didn't know that. And that's their go-to. So they will all share something. And by the way, the listening is stupendous. They're on the edge of their seats because people are saying something that's important to them. And that's their truth. And everybody listens. And that's bottom line what I need to get them to do in their script work. You are not acting like you are telling the story. You are telling the story. This is your life. And I also don't want them to go 100% in terms of, I always tell them there's always a small percentage or a chip that knows you're acting. And that should be there. Not saying that you're aware of it, but I don't want you, if you're homeless in a film, I don't want you living on the streets. That's where what came from. I came from that place where I was just, the things that I did and dangerous situations I put myself in for, the truth. There, you can go right up to the edge without going over. And I teach them that as well. You can get information without putting yourself in any dangerous situation whatsoever.
Something you said in the book, you can over rehearse a scene, but you can never overbuild a character.
If you're practicing the lines a certain way, you're killing it. It's cement now. I can't undo it. I can't, because sometimes they'll even get it sing-songy. I don't want my dad to get hurt. Oi, Gewalt. No, you can't sing your lines, right? Nor, I also tell the little ones, I take the scripts away from the little ones. I never let them read it, because when they read it the way they learn to read. Why am I staying home from school? And they can't bring it together because their process is one word at a time. And I tell the kids, in acting, we do one thought at a time. Why aren't I going to school today? It's not one word. It's the whole thought comes together. So I never let a beginner reader have the sides, ever. I'll tell them the words, the lines. We talk about the story. And when they understand the story, the lines come so fast to them. It's incredible.
In the rehearsal process, because you're teaching them how to rehearse, not memorizing lines, but how to rehearse. What are the steps that you give them to teach them how to rehearse instead of memorizing the lines, which can be very sing-songy or very choppy?
A lot of it is improvisation. A lot of it is improvisation. I'm working with a kid right now who's recurring on a huge show, and I can't say anything about it yet, but he's stupendous. I'm so proud of him. And I literally played his siblings doing improvisation with him, and he really got upset. And that was the whole scene. I can't say anything about it and I have to zip the lip, but there were a number of times where I just walked him through different scenarios. Here you are doing, I want you to look down. It's always look down and I want you to see this. And wow, I mean, it's almost second nature for kids. And that's why when there's a kid that's really meant to do this, it's like they leave and I go, I got paid for that. That was joy. I had the best time. Oh, I hope they come back soon. Right? Because it's so creative. And when there are scenes that are outside, I take them outside. When there's a scene in a car, I always get parents' permission. Trust me. Always, always, always. And I never start the car. But when there's a scene in the car, I ask the parents, may I have your kid come into my car? I promise I will not start the car. And I've never had a parent say no. And then the kid comes out of the car and the scene's totally different. You don't act the same way in a living room than you do same way in a car. You just don't. You look different places. It's just completely different, right? I mean, really, auditioning is the hardest thing there is because when you're on set, you're in your room. It's fabulous. You look at, oh, I love this. You identify with everything. You eat it up. It's your room, right? But in an audition, you must bring it all with you in your mind.
How do you start to teach them about script analysis? So we're talking about getting them to understand the lines that they're doing, do it authentically and not by rote.
Before you say any lines, you need your magnifying glass because you're a detective. Let's take out your magnifying glass and look at the sides, look at the script, and find the clues. Give me the clues. Where are the clues? And there are many times where I teach 2 hours, and the first hour, at least, sometimes for both hours, I don't let them say one word because we have clues to find. And we have to really understand certain situations. Like this script I did this morning. The kid has diabetes. Well, we have to understand it, right? We have to understand the pump is clogged. What are they talking about? We have to look it up. We have to understand it, right? We have to look up, how do you clean the pump? We need to do so much research. It is a privilege to say the lines. You don't get to say them right away because you didn't earn it. You need to first find all the clues. This morning I said, how do we know that this is not your regular doctor? How do we know that? Tell me the line that reveals it. And they're looking and they're looking. The line that reveals it is when the doctor says, doesn't your mother help you? And you say, my mother died when I was a baby. If this doctor was your doctor, the doctor would know that. So we just from that one line, I had a kid the other day, I said, let's really rip it to shreds. One line at a time. Every line you read, tell me what you learned. And it was awesome because there are clues throughout. And just, oh my God. I mean, it's fun. To me, it's a puzzle. First, we have to solve the puzzle and then we can play. But I never go, okay, let's just start acting. You have to earn it. It is a privilege. And that is why if somebody wants to be a movie star, there's so many acting coaches for them to go to. I am not it. I really don't want to help make movie stars. Not only that, but I have had, if you will, paparazzi in my front yard, right? I mean, it's like, seriously, it's so. I had a celebrity client where I said, well, let's go run and let's meet at whatever restaurant and grab a bite. And she was like, the paparazzi are too insane tonight. I can't. And I was like, what a terrible life that you can't go out. We can't go and grab a dessert somewhere because people are, you can't go out and wear sweatpants and no makeup or whatever it is, and you can't just, it's like being in a bubble. It's awful. It's awful. People don't want to be famous. That is not a goal. Your goal is to do great work that you can be proud of and say, okay, listen, the truth is all artists are perfectionists. And that's also really going to get in your way. But anybody, because often I'll say, well, what did you think? And I have some kids that were like, that was great. I'm like, well, too bad you're not an artist. But it's really about, I found that now what do we find? Now what do we find? Right? And acting is about discovering how other people tick. And I know what it's like to live in my shoes. What's it like to live in your shoes? And that's a process. And I have had kids tell stories and that are really tough stories to tell. Again, not trauma. Then I say, okay, now you tell the story that happened to you. And I did that one time, more than once, but when they were in person. And wow, they take it on as a responsibility. And I've said to kids for 37 years, what if somebody plays you in a movie, right? And they say to you, instead of tell me, they go, I don't really care about your life. I'm just going to wing it. Who cares? I'm you. How do you feel? Angry. Why? Because this is my life. My parents got divorced. My mom has, 4 kids or whatever with whatever their thing is. I had to move. I'm an army brat. I moved 17 times. They have to know that. Why? I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to do it. Let's wing it. And I like them to get personally upset because then they get to feel the obligation that's necessary to take on a role. It's not light. It's a really big obligation. 30 years ago when I was teaching in New York, God, I had this kid and he had to, it was a very sad story. I'm not going to go, it's really sad. But the thing is that I wrote him letters as his grandparent, as the character. Like I wrote, love Nana. And he would get these letters in the mail when, we would work on the character. And it was like, oh, but that's how the fantasy, we have to, if you're just reading the lines, you're not an actor. You're not an actor. Actors don't just read lines. That is not acting. That is reading out loud. You're a person who reads out loud, not an actor.
So you talk about discovery. I hear curiosity. I hear research. And in your Kindle book, you talk about character and scene are created by the writer, but the actor breathes life into the character. And part of that is you keeping a journal and writing down notes on things to make it very specific.
Right.
When do they get the journal? Like they're starting in class with you. They've gotten sides.
Yeah, well, it's all changed because I used to give out notebooks to everyone, but now it's not in person. So I tell them, get a notebook for our purpose only, for acting only. Get a journal. Here's the thing also that's super important. Don't judge the character. Once you say, oh, my character's awful, you can't play the character. right? So we talk a lot about heavy things in my class. For example, in my little kids class, I told them about how I went to Alfred's to get tea place, and there was someone homeless. And all these other people were like, oh, that's disgusting. Oh, the odor. And da 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 da. And I thought, wow, how cruel. This person is living on the streets. And for the first time, I thought, I wonder what this person was like as a little kid. And all the dreams and hopes, and they never said once, I want to grow up and not have anywhere to sleep at night. And the kids started to have compassion. And then I said, I bought the homeless person a croissant. And the person didn't want it and was like, I don't want your croissant. How interesting. How interesting. It's all interesting and food for thought. Don't watch and judge. Watch and learn. And by the way, I say this all the time. I get that you don't want to give homeless people money so they can go out and get drunk and drugs. I get that. But if I were homeless, I would be doing the same thing. I mean, honestly, can you imagine laying your head on the cement and somebody walking past you and, there's no reason to judge when you can have compassion and gratitude and learn. That's where the learning really happens, in observation, gratitude, and trying to get into their head. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but in the foster system, at 18, the money stops. So
That's right. And they're out on their own.
That's right. And I got to tell you, if I was out on my own at 18, I would have had nowhere to go. And I asked the kids in class, the teen classes especially, do you think your parents are going to cut you off completely at 18? You're not allowed to come back home. You're not allowed money. You're not. And they're like, no, my sister's 24 and she still lives at home. I'm like, that's right. That's right. So that's part of my class, to learn how other people tick and to take a step back. What we don't understand, we judge. Take the judging out and try to understand.
You're teaching a different mindset, how to be curious, how to be compassionate, how to put yourself in that other person's shoes. Instead of saying, well, they should be grateful I gave them a croissant. Well, maybe they're allergic to croissants. Yeah. You don't know all that's going on because you don't know them. And something I've learned with homeless people is I always ask them, what would you like? I'm going to buy you something. Right. What would you like? Would you like a salad? Would you like a sandwich? Would you like a water? What would you like? So that, because it's also understanding that they're still human beings, regardless of where they are at the moment. They're still human beings. They still don't like cabbage or broccoli. They still have likes and dislikes. Right. So ask them what they want. Ask them what they want. And that way you as an actor can start discovering, oh, my character doesn't like split pea. My character doesn't like ham. My character loves ham, but that was not allowed in my home. So I have to go and sneak it. It is you're building that character. You're going back to owning the part. You're adding those things. So we talked about a journal. I want to talk about on-set realities. once the kid has booked the job
Mm-hmm.
and you've been on set helping the director with the child actor, what are a couple of things that you share with young actors to say, when you get on a set, it's going to be different than it is us doing the Zoom or us meeting for a class? What are some of the things you tell them that they need to pay attention to?
Breathe. Just breathe. I was working with Danielle Panabaker, and boy, was I tough on her. Her mom was like, "You whipped that girl into shape." And it was my pleasure. What a sweetheart. I worked with her when she was a kid. And she had the opportunity to work on Empire Falls. So she's dealing with the likes of Ed Harris, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Helen Hunt. And I said, Paul Newman. I mean, come on. And I just said, just breathe. That's it. That's all you got to do is breathe, because these people give you so much. You don't need to do anything. Just receive it. Just receive it and give it. I always talk about how it's a tennis game. I have this one girl who is an actual tennis player, and that's how we rehearse the scene. I pretend I'm playing tennis, and it's fun because I can actually get it over the net. And we do the lines. I go, well, why would you think that, or whatever? And she'd go, but mom, and we would just pantomime playing tennis. That's the thing. I guess that's in a nutshell. I'm not cookie cutter. Nobody's going to get the same thing because nobody's the same person. I was working with, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. I work with a lot of people, and sometimes I have to sign NDAs and sometimes I don't. But I'll just say I was working with an influencer, famous hair influencer, does a lot of rich and famous hair. And he's an adult, and he was doing his audition here over Zoom. And he said, Marnie, I'm nervous. I go, okay, what should I do with my hair? He goes, oh, you need to do ba 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 ba. And I went, okay, now you're ready. And he was like, oh, yeah, I am. I feel completely confident. He just needed to get into where does he feel powerful and secure. And once I asked him, what would you do? He was just off and running, and he was fabulous. So I'll do that with one person in my career. Who else does hair? You know? So I really try to figure out you. Help me find you. What makes you so different? And I always tell people I'm like a therapist. I will never tell your secrets unless it seems that you're going to harm yourself or someone else. And I always say, I will blow, if anything, you tell me anything, and there's something rotten going on, I will make sure to blow the whistle. Other than that, I have heard every story in the book. When you get on a set, I would say if you have a room, like I said to this kid a couple of weeks ago, it's the first day you're going to see your room, your bedroom. Ask them before you start shooting if you can hang out in your room a little bit. And so that's the advice I would use. But it's easier. Everything's easier on set. Everything's easier on set. I just beg the parents, please don't think it's about you. It's not. In fact, they believe you're going to be a stage parent. So prove them wrong. That's your job. Make it so easy, right? I mean, I have seen it all. I've seen it all. And sometimes the parents think that they're the director, and they'll go, Marnie, come here, come here, come here. I've had this. I swear to God. Come here. I want to tell you something. How about, and I'm like, oh, dear Lord in heaven. It just irks me to no degree that they want to give notes. Please just love your kid. Love your child. Feed them. Bring them to where they need to be on time. Don't direct them. Don't practice with them. If you want to practice, do imagination stuff. Ask them what your character has in their room. Ask them what's their favorite stuffed animal. But don't get involved.
What are some of the challenges that parents should anticipate when they get on set so they don't get their feathers ruffled?
Assume nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody wants you around except to be the parent. You are only the parent. That means you don't have to watch every take. That means if they don't offer you earphones, don't ask. It's painful because you see your kid up there. You want to help them. I get it. I'm a mom. It's a hard job to be a hands-off parent when you're on set. It is, because you know your kid better than anybody. And you just gotta let them do their thing and pretend it's like a baseball game. You wouldn't get in the middle of the baseball game and go, okay, everybody, let's go back and you go ahead and you're going to be the batter and I want you to pitch instead. And you wouldn't do that. Everybody would want to kill you. It's the same principle. It's the same principle.
Yes.
This is something really sad, but I, as a kid, thought I was up for a role on a very famous TV show because that's what I was told. Later on, like years later, I found out I was used as a threat. If the mom on set didn't lay off, this is who's replacing your kid. Can you imagine? But I thought I was really up for the role. See, another reason I'm thinking, why didn't I get the role? Because you weren't even a thought to actually do the role unless the mother didn't lay off. And if she didn't lay off, yes, you would have gotten the role. I had no idea. So you think you know casting? You don't know casting. You don't know. So, I mean, if that's the most important thing, do not go into acting to book a series. Go in because you love the art of acting, because you're curious, because you love learning how other people tick, and you love learning about different life experiences and different places around the world, and you grew up with money. Imagine, try to get into the shoes of somebody who had no money. Well, you're not going to get to, is the truth, but you can get darn close, and that's what I want you to do. And there's different methods for different things, of course.
So you started out at 6 years old, taking classes and starting. So as a kid, you learned what worked and what didn't work.
No, as a kid, I learned nothing. I would go to these acting classes. Because I have a good memory of it, and it was like they think this is why I teach the way I teach, because people think children only know how to play theater games, and theater games are wonderful, but you need to tell them why they're playing this game. Why? There has to be a reason. There's an observation game that I play with kids, and they love it because it's called 3 Changes, and I go off. Now I could just close my camera, and I put up my hair, and I go, what are the 3 changes? And they're laughing, and they're guessing, but they have to know that we use this when we are working with somebody, because we need to notice the change. Why is Mom's face like that? Why does she look like that? Oh gosh, what did I do? Do you know what I'm saying? You have to know that this game is not just a game. And it's interesting because a lot of kids will come to me after all they've done, which is great, is play theater games. And I go, why? Why do you do that? Because the teacher said. Okay, well, I need you to know why. And then I tell them, they're like, oh, that's why.
So, as an actor, what made you decide you wanted to teach and teach specifically to kids? Because not everybody wants to teach kids, and you have embraced it and have taken total ownership of it.
Okay. Well, I was going to be an actress, so help me God. And like I said, I got very close to some very big projects, but it didn't happen. And I can only imagine if it happened. I cared too much about what other people thought about me. It would not have been a good road for me at the time. Listen, I took a workshop once. I think there were, I don't know, 60 adults in it, and 59 gave me glowing reviews. One person said, you are adequate. And it spun me for days. I was like, who is that person? Are they just messing with me? Who? Oh, I know. Wait, it made me bananas. I could not survive. I had the love of acting. I didn't have the thick skin. And I don't know what would have happened, but I don't think it would have been good. I didn't know how to take anything with a grain of salt. And I even used to do an exercise with a lot of these little kids that were in my class. It was so weird, but I used to do it all the time, where I would actually have every kid say something rude to them. Not rude. There were rules. Like, you could never say, you're fat, or I would be like, oh my God, mortified. But you would say things like, your earrings are stupid. All the kids would say silly things, but insult them. And then they'd have to walk that line and be like, I'm terrific. I'm awesome. And I used to do it. And maybe it's a reason why so many of them became stars. They learned how to just who cares? And that was the lesson. People are going to say things. Be a duck. That just let it, just the oil, it just flows off of you. Don't take it in. Right? So anyway, I remember I was in a diner with my friend, and I said, I will die if I'm not an actor. I remember that specifically. And then somebody overheard me talking at an acting school about given circumstances, where in it, this woman was what they call barren. She could not have children. And in this actor, in her bio, she had like 4 children. And it made me bananas, because I'm a passionate person. So I was like, did you not read the script? Do you not see that? Did you not look up the word barren? And I'm going off and running. Unbeknownst to me, they recommended me to teach acting at this school that somebody fell out last minute. And I got a call, and I said, I'm not qualified. And they said, you're overqualified. And I said, okay, I'll take the job. And it was a professional theater camp. And all the kids that I worked with ended up getting either representation, or every single one of them people wanted to see a lot more of. And it was almost like uncanny. And at first I was like, that's odd. And then I was like, wait a minute. Maybe there's something to this. I love working with kids. I love helping them create. I remember there was one of the very first kids I worked with. He had to do a monologue about not wanting to wear a tie, and I got him a tie, and I said, we're going to wear this tie this afternoon. And so he talked about wearing a tie, and he owned it, like we were talking about, because I made him wear it for a while. I didn't make him wear it so it was so tight that it hurt him, but it was so uncomfortable. So by the time he was talking about, he had said, and it hurt my neck. Why do parents wear ties, or whatever Anyway, I had such a ball. I had such a great time. And I just loved to help them, and to think that I was part of their success. Now, 36 years later, see, I used to be the person who would spot a little kid and go, oh my God, you have to be in acting. And now it's very, 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 very rare that I would ever say anything to somebody. Although I did a couple of months ago. But this girl was something else. But I did put the fear of the business. I let the mom know it is an ugly business. And I guess acting is beautiful. Learning about different people is stupendous. Acting as an industry is for adults. It's not made for kids. Your kid will miss Halloween. Ask your kid if they're okay missing Halloween. Most are not. But there will be one who, and I know one right now that I'm working with, who will say, I don't care about Halloween. I get to wear costumes every day. But most, and I remember one little kid who I was working with crying. And I was like, what's the matter? I missed Halloween. Oh, God, that hurt, But that's the kind of sacrifice your kid's going to have to make. And you don't get to pick and choose. People also will think, well, I'll only do the projects that I find interesting. Well, you're not going to work. Because you have to keep working. Work begets work. And at some point, listen, I went to college for acting. And by the end of the 4 years of training, I didn't like acting anymore. They got so in my head that there was no fun. It was all about, well, what's your objective and what's your action? And make sure you write it to the side. And then what's your super objective? And I was like, get me out of this. So I teach from experience. If I see that this is getting too much in your head, let's pivot. I remember one time I came up with a lesson plan because everyone's like, you got to have a lesson plan. Okay, let's have a lesson plan. So I had this lesson plan and I was teaching and it wasn't going anywhere. And I took the lesson plan and I crumpled it up and I threw it away. And the kids were like, what was that? I said, that was my lesson plan. Now I'm going to watch you and you're going to tell me what you need. And the class was amazing because I'm not saying, all I was saying is I was looking to them. We would start a scene and I'd go, oh my gosh, you don't know how to listen. Or, you're playing the scene like, oh, I can take it or leave it. Right? Let me just say one last thing. I laugh because I remember I tell on myself all the time in class. It humbles me and it's so embarrassing. But like I told you, my dog pooped. Okay. So I once was in a store looking at a pair of boots and I was like, I got to get those boots. I need those boots. It got to the point where if somebody said, will you die if you don't get those boots? I'd say, absolutely. If I don't get those boots, I will die. I ended up buying the boots. Oh my God. But what is the lesson? That's objective, right? That's how you must play everything. At the end of the day, I didn't need the boots. Hello, I have boots. It's enough. But I tell on myself when I do things that help them understand. It doesn't have to be, the circumstances don't even have to be life and death to make it life and death. And my class is also about human growth, really. Because, there's this saying, hurt people hurt people. And every one of my students, little ones, 5 years old, knows that. Because the next time somebody bullies them or says something mean, they're going, oh, it's not me. Somebody was really hurting them. And they feel better hurting me. But it really has nothing to do with me. And one other time, when people were really beating themselves up, I took out Q-tips. I gave everyone a Q-tip. And I said, okay, you want to beat yourself up? Boop. That's how you get to beat yourself up, with a Q-tip. That's it. And I also tell them one other thing. I ask them to make mistakes, because that's how they're going to learn. So very often I'll say, what mistakes did you make? And I love it. I go, oh, thank God you're going to be a great artist because you're willing to make mistakes. But if you play it safe, you can only be mediocre. So I honestly asked them, I said, you are trained incorrectly. I'm sorry. But yes, in math, if you don't get the equation right, it's a mistake. But in acting, mistakes make you the better artist. So I try to really shake them up with ideas about life. And I love them. They're all my children. They're wonderful. They're wonderful.
I want you to tell the viewer how they can find your school.
Email is fantastic. Go on my website, howdoiact.com. Howdoiact.com. And that's the easiest. Or you could Google me, Marnie Cooper, and it comes up. Now, this summer, actually, we have some slots left in our summer intensive. And this year, it's going to be from the Diary of Anne Frank.
And how long is the summer intensive?
It's every day for 1 week. We could,
lovely.
Yes. And what we'll be doing, it's very interesting, because with what's going on in this world, I'm not going to get political, God help me, but we were going to go to the Museum of Tolerance because there's a whole Anne Frank exhibit, but I canceled it because of the tragedy that happened at one of the museums. So instead, we are going over to this woman's house. She was in the Holocaust, and she is a pistol. And the reason why we're doing this is because most of the people that were in the Holocaust have died. We have the last of the last hanging on, right? And I want my students to have the opportunity to hear from real people about their experiences. And pretty soon, like I said, and because my daughter was like, Mom, you should do it. I was like, Kennedy, next year. I promise. But this year, it's important, while there's still some alive, to hear from them, which is what acting's about. Listen to the person with the lived experience. So I'm very excited about it, because the work that they do, and they get a lot of homework, and I do give them journals that say Marnie Cooper School of Acting, and it is in person, and we are going to be working very hard, and there is not one person who has not grown in leaps and bounds after coming every day and becoming just immersed in the work.
Well, first of all, you are a firecracker. You bring such a light and so much energy, and are just joyful. This was so exciting, and I want to remind everybody, if you're interested in acting for yourself, for your kid, you got to get Marnie's book, Teaching Kids to Act for Film and Television. It is available on Amazon, and you want to go to the website, howdoiact.com. Don't forget, howdoiact.com. I love your spirit. I love your philosophy with on teaching kids. If my daughter was under 18 again, I definitely would send her your way.
Thank
you so much for this. Thank you for doing this. I think it's going to help a lot of people out there. So thank you. Ooh, Marnie Cooper is the real thing. And she loves working with young people, which is what I love even more, that she loves it. She loves inspiring them, motivating them, and getting them out in front of the camera. Beautiful. I would love to know what you thought of this interview. Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, why don't you buy me a coffee? And don't go anywhere, because coming up, we got another great interview just for you.